Okay, so we are aiming to finish the first four prakim, our first complete unit. Yeah, well, I guess not our first complete unit, whatever. Unit we've been working on. So this is four. We're at chapter 4, halacha yud, which we've read. We've read all this before, so this will be we read it when we first did Hashem and Yiras Hashem and Masabration Kava. So this will just be our goal is to figure out the nuances that we didn't think about last time. So kol hadvarim ha'elu shedibarnu b'inyan, all the things that we said on this topic, meaning the he'll say kamar midlihem, they are like a drop in a bucket with dvarim amukim, and they're deep matters of all inam omeg inyan perak rishon b'sheni, and they are not as deep though as the subject matter of the first and second chapter. So the first and second subject was like an ocean. And this was a drop in the ocean, and this is like a bucket, which is far less deep than an ocean.
And this being
Maaser Bereshis, yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
Where are we?
In chapter 4, halacha yud, should be on the last paper page. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just read that. The explanation of all the matters in the third and fourth chapter. This is called the work of creation. This is what the early Chachamim commanded. We should also not expound on these matters in public, but rather to one person alone. We make these matters known to him and teach him.
Yeah. I did notice you just say bear.
Yeah.
Does that mean the explanation of the things that are in the chapters, or he means
I think he means the explanation of the things in the chapters. I mean, the things in the chapters are not. They are the inyan of Maaser Merkava. I mean, the topics that Maaser Merkava is about, or Maaser Bereshis is about,
right,
but they don't constitute it. Yeah.
Okay.
But again, like the question that we raised, what was it this morning in Q&A, is still subject to that. Like, does that mean that a single word of explanation and like you're in Maaser Bereshis territory? Clearly not, because the Rambam does talk about this stuff elsewhere, you know. Mm-hmm. All right. So nothing really new there that we hadn't already talked about. Uma bein inyan Maaser Merkava inyan Maaser Bereshis. What is the difference between the work of the chariot and the work of creation? Inyan Maaser Merkava afilu afa ein dorshin bo. Maaser Merkava, even to one person, we do not expound. Ela im kain hayachacham umevi midato mosrin lo rashi haprakim. Unless he is a chacham and he understands with his own mind, then we transmit to him the headings of the chapters. The Inyan Maaser Bereshis belonging also liyachad, but the matter of the work of creation, we teach it to an individual. Even though he can't understand it from his own mind. Modim also kol shiachol leda midvarim. We make known to him everything that is possible to know from these matters. That's also weird that he has to say that. Like, I mean, is he just saying that don't think that there's anything that we conceal from him? No, if he just said, Maaser Merkava, we don't explain it to him, he has to understand it on his own. But Maaser Bereshis, we teach, we do teach him everything, you know, or we do teach him, you know. Yeah. Also, koshi yachol leda midvarim. I just don't know what he's adding about that. It feels like he's getting at something else.
Yeah.
Yeah. V'lama im lamdi also barabim. Why don't we teach it in public? Which again, you would think that. I mean, I guess barabim here, it doesn't even mean in public. It just means more than to an individual. Because not everyone has a mind that is abstract enough, I guess, rachava, to understand the explanation and clarification of these matters, right? So back to our Pirush and beer thing. I don't know what the difference is. Clearly, yeah. Which also implies when he says lahasik pirush beer kol dvarim al burian, doesn't mean that every single aspect of Maaser Merkava is not understandable to people. It's that certain aspects are understandable, but not clearly, and the clarity matters here. Because we're talking about like the foundations of all other chachmos, okay, in a way. Yeah, not like in Maaser Merkava where the foundations matter because it's going to screw up your yesodos. I don't think a mistake in Maaser Bereshis is gonna like affect your ikarim in the same way that Maaser Merkava will.
Right, but it'll mess up your knowledge of science.
Yeah.
But it's funny because like you do have.
I just need to
Yeah.
see who this is because if it is a time-sensitive call, nope, it is my wireless service. That's weird. Okay, yeah.
It's funny because you do have. It's sort of a question we raised on like just Yesodei Yesodei.
Yeah.
Like there are people who know who know science without knowing mitzvos gracious.
Presumably, unless look, I mean, I'll say this with trepidation, but like if the Rambam held that he could arrive at Ma'aser Merkava through his own mind, what's to stop someone from arriving at Ma'aser Bereshis through their own mind, especially since Ma'aser Bereshis is about the Bria, So that's also a possibility. Maybe stuff that scientists are involved now is Ma'aser Bereshis, and maybe the reason why the Rishonim didn't talk about that is they didn't have science, it's good. That's what's going to be really hard to translate their idea of science, which was really natural philosophy, into present day scientific terms, and say are these even two separate subjects? Or was Ma'aser Bereshis a certain type of philosophy that even still has, and in which case it would have nothing to do with science, or not nothing to do with it. But it would be like for example, when you talk about, I doubt this is what Ma'aser Bereshis is. I'm just giving an example of something that people are not clear when they draw the line on. Is a lot of scientists now wander into areas either of metaphysics or epistemology without realizing that it's a different field. When you get down to like the origins of the universe, you get into questions of like, what is the nature, or like ontological questions, like what's the nature of reality itself? What is what can man know? What does it mean to know stuff? So I can see there being a borderline that we are even less aware of because the borderline in the time of the Rishonim was very, very different. So this all boils down to the answer: we don't know, and I don't know, but at least we know what we don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Knowledge.
The only knowledge we can have. Bisman Adam is bonim b'dvarim elu. This is your base. The time when a person contemplates these matters. Umakir kula bruin. So now this is going to be his new definition of, or not new definition, his restatement of ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem, and it's slightly different than the last time around. So he says, "Bisman Adam is bonim b'dvarim elu." When a person recognizes or gains insight into these matters, these things, these phenomena, umakir kul habruim, and he recognizes all the creations. Malach v'galgal v'adam v'kiyotabo, from angel to sphere to man and things like it. V'yireh chachmaso shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chol ha'yitzurim v'chol habruim, and he sees the wisdom of the Kadosh Baruch Hu in all of the formations and creations. Mosif ahava lamakom, he increases love of God. But v'titzma nafsho v'yichma basara le'ehov hamakom Baruch Hu, and his soul thirsts and his flesh yearns to love the true existence. Blessed is he. V'yira v'yivchad mishifluso v'daluso v'kaluso, and he is afraid and trembles from his lowliness and his frailty, or his inferiority and his frailty. Kishiyarov atzmo le'echa mehagufos hakadoshim hagadolim, when he compares himself to one of these great heavenly bodies, or transcendent bodies, that's the spheres. And all the more so when he compares himself to the pure forms that are separate from matter, that are not joined to matter at all. And he'll find himself he'll find himself to be a vessel filled with shame and embarrassment, empty and deficient.
Yeah, so why is that? That seems like I think it is an emotional reaction. And I guess it seems like why is that something to cultivate? I guess.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's saying you should cultivate. It sounds like a natural result, right? Yimtza atzmo. He'll find himself. Like, for example, the Rambam did not use that lashon. First of all, he doesn't use that lashon about ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. Right. He doesn't say like, if you do this, then you'll find it. It'll turn out, that you'll love God, or like lishma or me'ava. Like that's cultivation. This is like an after effect, So it's still a good question though. What's the nature? But before we tackle that question, I just want to put this side by side, which I'll literally do on the screen, but you'll have to do it side by side with your books. Let's look at the definitions of Yiras Hashem and ahavas Hashem again in the Mishneh Torah in the second chapter, and just compare it. And it is every time I read it, it's like more different than it seems at first glance. So yeah, Yesodei Torah 2:1.
2:1.
Yeah. Let me share my whole screen here. And I know we've read this a lot, but we're going to read it more times in our life. So might as well be now. Hakel hanekwa v'nor hazeh mitzvah la'ova u'liyom mimenu shnemar v'yahavta es Hashem elokecha v'nemar es Hashem elokecha tira. Okay. V'heachi haderech la'ahavas v'yirasa. What is the path to loving and fearing God? So first of all, that's one difference. In Perek Sheni, he's laying out a path or a method. In Yud Beis, he's like describing what happens. Bisman sh'adam misbonim b'dvarim elu. Not this is how you do it. So that's one difference.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that busha is not. It's not ava or yira.
Wait, you're going back to the Bush already?
Yeah. I'm just asking.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think that's Ava or Yira. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Yeah, that fan. All right. I gotta find a solution to this. I don't know if you noticed I'm moving this a little bit further away. I'm gonna see if that makes a difference for the squealing. But okay.
Some of your laptop that noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The weird thing about this laptop is, sorry for the people on the video, is it has fans, but like I feel like the vents are not as prominent as my last laptop, which is probably by design. But like it leads to this feeling that it's trapping a lot of heat that it shouldn't.
It probably is.
Yeah, but like then we'll open it up then, like well, like that's what the fans are for. And Zoom takes a lot of like CPU, like it is pretty crazy. Okay, I don't know what CPU is. I just know that's what things people say. Yeah, right. So then he says, "B'shashi is bonin ha'adam b'masav uvru haniflam hagdolim." So that's compared to Bismash Adam is bonin b'dvarim elu. Okay, but then in Perek Daled, he specifies makir kol abruim mimalach v'galgal adam kiyotzebo. Whereas in Perek Sheni he doesn't. He doesn't specify the particular creations, right?
Well, I guess he hasn't mentioned them yet.
I was gonna say that the simplest explanation is he hasn't mentioned them yet. Okay. Then he says in Perek Sheni, v'yira mehem chachmasa she'in la. Right. She'in la erech locates, and he sees from them God's wisdom that has no comparison and no end. Okay. Whereas in Dalet he says v'yira chachmasa shel Kadosh Baruch Hu b'chol ha'yitrim b'chol ha'baruim. So he does not emphasize. So he in Dalet he emphasizes the creations, and in Beis he emphasizes the nature, the difference of God's chachma. Right. I mean, both of them he mentions the chachma, but in Perek Sheni he says it's an unmatched chachma, and here he's saying he sees the chachma in all of the creations and formations. Okay, back to Beis. Miyad hu ohev u'meshabech u'mefa'er u'misava tava gadola leida Hashem Haggadol. And then he quotes David Melech. He loves and praises and glorifies and is filled with a great desire to know the great name. And then in Dalet he says, Titzma nafsho, his soul thirst, which is the pasuk that he quotes in Tehillim and Perek Beis, v'yichmed b'sar, and his flesh yearns. I always found that weird. His flesh yearns.
Wait,
So
hold on, we're jumping back and forth.
yes, that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm trying to say the Beis and Dalet just to keep us.
Sorry.
That's fine. Yeah, so he the thirst part is there. I understand soul thirsting. I don't understand flesh yearning.
Soul thirsting, flesh
Soul
Yeah.
thirsting makes sense. That's your mind, right? But flesh yearning, like what does your flesh have to do with ahavas Hashem? And then le'ahov hamagam baruch hu, to love hamagam baruch hu, as opposed to the verb in the other one is the infinitive verb is laid well he doesn't even use an infinitive. Oh, he does. Okay, is misavet tava gadola leida Hashem Haggadol. Right, slight difference. So that's for the ahavas Hashem part.
Which
Yeah.
is also interesting because you can't actually have positive knowledge of God.
Well, I don't think he's saying have not positive knowledge of God. He's saying have knowledge of God's name.
Oh, he does that. Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Which
is referring to the knowledge of God that we can have.
okay.
Yeah. I'll hold this up. Okay. It's extra loud today. I don't know. Then the Yiras Hashem definition is different. Okay, which is this is in Perek Sheni. When he thinks about these things themselves, versus let's read the whole thing, I guess. Miyadhu nirta lachorav. Immediately he recoils backwards. V'yira v'yifchad v'yida shubiria katana shvela afela umid b'das kala lifnei tamideos. He fears and trembles and knows that he is a small creature, lowly and dark, standing with a frail mind and small mind before the being who's perfect in knowledge. But in Daled, in Perek Daled, he says v'yira v'yifchad. So that part's the same. Mishiflusa v'delusa v'kaluso, from his lowliness and inferiority and frailty. When he compares himself to these great and transcendent bodies, to the angels. All right, so that's a more spelled out type of thing, and it's framed as comparison to those bodies, as opposed to being Omed Lifnei Hashem, which is in Perek Beis.
Right, and in Perek Beis he is sort of comparing.
Yeah, with the Mechashev part, you mean? Yeah,
and also,
right.
like Tom and Bears, like his knowledge as opposed to God.
Right, that's true. Yeah, it's funny. Like God is kind of out of the picture in Daled.
Yeah.
Other than in being the source of this recognition of the Chachma. And then Yimtza Atmo Shu Kichlim Alabusha Uchlima Reik, which has no mention in Perek Sheni. Which, see, that supports my theory that this Busha and Klima is not something you're striving for. Because if it were, you put it in the derech, right? In other words, the Busha and Klima is not part of the derech of ahavas Hashem and Yiras Hashem. It's just an after effect.
Well, Kitana, Shvela, Vafela.
But that's not Busha though.
Right, but those are like value terms, no? Aren't they?
No, I think he means it quite literally.
Yeah.
That you're small.
Small and
lowly in terms of like the nature of your existence or your place in existence.
Okay.
Even if it is value terms, it's not emotions.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. The Yira and the Pachad are emotions.
Yeah.
And then the Busha and Klima are. But the question is, where does this Busha come from? Which is the question we started off the semester with. Yes. Oslo Evoch Be'abiti El Komen Sosecha.
Yes.
Yeah, right. So the opening pasuk of the Mishneh Torah is, then I will not be ashamed when I look upon all your mitzvos. Yeah. So so what did we say? I don't remember. But I think whatever we said there was tied to the fact that the mitzvos are a regimen that is for your own perfection. And therefore, if you don't know that you need that mitzvah, or you don't know like what the mitzvah is, like what the halachos are, then that's a shame in terms of like, how can you be like, same thing, like if you were a doctor and you didn't know how to do the basic doctorate stuff, like that's shameful, So if you're a human, you don't know how to do the basic human stuff, that's shameful. That is, to me, somewhat different than this. This is like, you see the universe and you feel shame. So I don't see where that shame is coming from. And then the reik v'chaser is also interesting, empty and lacking. Is that in terms of your knowledge, or is that in terms of your being? Like, because the empty and lacking, if it's empty and lacking in knowledge, or maybe even if the Busha and Klima are in terms of knowledge, I mean, that reminds me of one of my favorite quotes here. Quotations, hold on, quotations. The Newton, I don't want to pick up where I left off. Newton, yeah. I was like a boy playing on the seashore and diverting myself now and then, finding a smoother pebble or a prettier shell than ordinary, whilst the great ocean of truth lay all undiscovered before me. That's describing like a reik v'chaser feeling of like, I'm just like grasping a small little part of this, and there's so much that I don't know, so I'm lacking in knowledge. If that lack of knowledge is the Busha and Klima, okay, I'm starting to talk myself into it. With the Mishneh Torah, lack of knowledge of halacha is Busha, that is a different type because you don't know how to be a human if you don't know halacha, but it is related to knowledge. It's a Busha that stems from like realizing the vastness of your ignorance. This is the same, but it's realizing the vastness of your ignorance and your deficiency as itself, a keem of like, there's so much to know, and I'm such a poor vessel or vehicle for like attaining it. I'm basically like got nothing. And it's interesting that he also uses, I don't know if this has anything to do with it. This might be a little stretch. Okay. If you question me on this, I'll deny that I ever said it. He's using water terms for everything, because he says that Ma'aseh Merkava is an ocean and Ma'aser Bereshis is a bucket, and he is a kli that's empty.
Whoa, Newton stole it from the Rambam.
Oh, yeah. Where's the little boy? Where's the shell? Yeah. So so it stands to reason maybe that the kli, he's not filled with knowledge. He's filled with the ignorance of knowledge, which is the busha and klima,
Which is
and he's
emptiness.
Yeah, and he's reik v'chaser of that knowledge.
So what? It's interesting. Why does that cause busha? Because you didn't do anything wrong. It's not like you messed up. It's
Right.
just-
Yeah, I guess it's busha because it's like the thing that you were designed to do, you're just woefully lacking in, which is a natural
Yeah, it's not shame for something you did, it's shame for what you're not doing. It's like if you feel like those things are the right thing and you're not doing them, so then you feel shameful that you're not doing
right.
the
Or
thing.
really, I'd say slightly different emphasis, which is shame for what you are, which is you are a knower. That's the type of creature you are a knower, and you just don't know. You don't lack any, and you lack this knowledge.
So you're at like the bottom of the category that you are in.
Exactly. Yeah. God created you to be a knower of the universe, and you got a little pebble.
Right. Well, didn't he just then make you to be a knower of the pebble? Like he didn't make you to be a knower of everything. You just know that.
I mean, look, we just read the definition of your soul is the man who the form of the man who is perfect in his knowledge.
Right.
So you're lacking in terms of your soul.
I see.
And if you're not ashamed of the lack of your soul, then I don't want to know you.
Right.
People get I think there's something what was hold on. Let me look this up also. This is on an episode of the Stoic Jew podcast, and something about pantaloons. I think this is an old-fashioned word for pants.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah, it's a great word, pantaloon.
Shortened it.
Hold on here.
Wait, yeah. Why should you be bushad for not fulfilling your soul if it's not even possible really to have all knowledge?
Hold on just a second. I can't.
Sure.
Oh, all right. It's not relevant. Never mind.
If the how do you have busha for not having all knowledge? Even though that is what your soul is made to do, I guess, but it is impossible for a person to have all knowledge.
Yeah, no one's saying that this bush is rational,
Yeah.
right? It's just that I think it's just a natural reaction when you realize how little you know. It's like a humility,
Right.
And humility and humiliated are related. I mean, it's a recognition of your inferiority and your lowliness. And not that anyone expected better of you. I mean, I'm sure Moshe Rabbeinu also had this feeling,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. So that's not something that you strive for as part of the mitzvah. It's a natural result of all this.
Mhm.
Can we explain anything else of these other observations we made about why these things are different? I mean, I think the move you made about the specificity is good. The specificity is just because he had not talked about those things before, so how are you supposed to know what they are? Now he's spelling them out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kashiyah Roch Atzmo is just is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, that could just be talking about what we said before, like the phenomenon of just realizing how small you are. And from an animalistic perspective, like the animalistic psyche gets very, very, subdued when it realizes how small it is. And that's like when you watch all the universe videos, like how big the universe is, then you feel like inferior.
Right.
So it is based on a comparison thing,
It is interesting that he's this kol shekain Mansuros.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's that's totally different.
It's an absurd comparison.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're not even in their league.
Right. And it's not even a size difference.
Yeah. Right.
Also, wait, what was the? Well, he said Leda in Parsheni.
Yeah.
What did he say in Dalit?
Is le'ehov. Yeah, he says Mosif av lamakom and tisva nafsha v'yichma basar le'ahov
Mhm.
lamakom baruch.
Right. Right.
Which is funny because the ahava itself is a state of desire as well.
Right.
You will
so-
desire to
To
be
know.
involved in the activity that is chasing after this desire to love God. Yeah. All right. I mean, I think we got the main idea, at least other subtleties. All right. All right. So now we go to the very last part. Let me just readjust my screen here. Okay. Vinyani arba'a prakim elu shebachamesh mitzvos elu heim shechachamim harishonim korin also pardes. So the topics of these 4 chapters in these 5 mitzvos, they are what the early sages called pardes. And hilarious footnote here, pardes gan hamistorin, the garden of mysteries. Isn't that what that means in modern Hebrew?
I guess so.
I assume
Sounds right.
mysterian. Yeah, right.
Mystery.
Yeah. Anyway, Kamosh Amru arba'a nichnasu l'pardes, as it says, 4 went into pardes. So this is what I wanted to show you in the Gemara in Haggadah, just to read the story of arba'a nichnasu l'pardes. So if you look in Haggadah, Yud Dalet on the base.
Okay.
Oh no, I was looking to see if we had a Torah time Haggadah. I think we might actually, but it's in the other room. I was gonna make I think mine is in Seattle.
I think I have one.
Oh yeah.
What?
Welcome to myself.
Okay.
Welcome
Yeah.
to our ego. It's all the way at the end. What is it, the dollar?
Yeah.
We have 2. I'm gonna throw on the table. You could do a fight for. Okay, but let's look at the Gemara first.
Well, yeah. What do we need?
Okay, open it right there.
What do we need?
Yeah, all right. So we'll start with the Gemara though. So it's in. Looks like it's. I'm not using the source of doc. It looks like it's kind of close to the bottom of the page. Tanu Rabbanan arba'a nichnasu l'pardes.
On your dollar.
On Yudal Am Beis, yeah, in Chagiga. While you look at there, I'll look in the Torah time thing for whatever he said.
Good dollar my big, right?
Oh, I found it. Tanur Rabbanan Arba Nechnasa.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. You got it, Ziv?
No.
It's 8 lines up in the bottom.
Okay. So, Arba Nichnasu B'Paris, Ve'eluhin, here, and these are they. Ben Azai Ben Zoma, Acher Rabbi Akiva. And Acher is Elisha ben Abuya. Amar Lahem Rabbi Akiva, Keshetem Agin Etzel Avne Sheish, or Shayish, I don't have Nikodos. When you guys reach, Rabbi Akiva said to them, when you reach the marble, the stones of pure marble, Al Tomru Mayim Mayim, don't say water, water. Mishum Shneimar, as it says, Dover Shakarim Lo Yikon Leneged Einai. It says, one who speaks falsehood will not be established before my eyes. Say, what? This is one of these things that everyone's like, what does that mean? When you get to the marble stones, don't say water, water. Who puts marble stones in their Pardes, and what is this, and what is water, water? Oh, all right, fine, all right. So then what happens? Then Azai hitzitz umes. Then Azai gazed or looked and died. Allah Hakasavomer, regarding him, it says, Yakar be'ene Hashem hamavasa lachasidav. Regarding him, it says in one of the proclamations saying to him, precious in the eyes of Hashem is the death of his pious ones. Ben Zoma hitzitz v'nifka. Ben Zoma gazed and was afflicted. Some say like went crazy, not exactly sure what it is. And regarding him, it says, Devash matasa echol dayecha pentis ba'anu v'hekeso. I don't know if I vowelized that right. It says in Mishlei, if you found honey, eat what is deficient for you, lest you be satiated with it and vomit it out. Acher kitzitz binetios. Acher uprooted the shoots or uprooted the saplings. No pasuk. Rabbi Akiva yatsa b'shalom. Rabbi Akiva came out safely. Right? So that's the story of the 4 who went into Pardes. Yeah. Now let me just quickly see. The best commentary I found on it, interestingly enough, is in the Rashbatz's Pirush on the Haggadah on the Arba Banim.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, does he say it's a mashal for the urban?
That's one of the I think he does not say that that's the pshat, but he does say okay. So it's on page. Oh, by the way, if you don't have a copy of this is the only thing you ever need for every Pesach. It really is like I've looked at other Haggadahs, but every year this is all I need. Like it's just got everything in it. Okay, so it's on page Memches, which is easy to remember because that's Moach, that's the brain, that's what you need in order to learn these areas. Yeah.
Nice.
All right, so this is not on the screen because I don't know where to find it on. I don't know if it's on the. Okay, so if you look on the bottom right,
Rashbatz.
yeah, Rashbatz, 3 lines up from the bottom. The inyan arba'a banim, right? So the matter of the 4 sons in the Haggadah, who ki yadua ki hanichnasim lepardes, because it's known that those who enter into Pardes, v'hem hama'amikim b'chachmos hapnimios, which are the people who go into depth in the inner wisdoms. Now, I have no idea if his chachmos are, if what Rashbatz is calling chachmos pnimios corresponds to what the Rambam is talking about.
He's a Rishon, right?
He is, yeah. Heim chalukim b'mechkaram. They are divided in their inquiry and in their analysis. Yesh mi shehischil b'chakira kahogen. There are those who start off in their research properly, v'hishlima, and they complete it, v'alsa biado kahogen, and they get what they came for properly. Who nikra nichnas b'shalom v'yatza b'shalom. That is called going in and leaving in peace and leaving in peace. That's Rabbi Akiva. V'zehu nikra b'Haggadah chacham. Okay, we're not going to go into how he applies this to the Haggadah. We're just we're going to read this first part. V'yesh shehem nikba mitchila v'hishlima. But then there are some who go into depth in the beginning and they complete it. V'nata ba el hakfira. And then they incline towards heresy. V'hechzik ba, and they cling to it. V'zehu nikra mikatit b'netios. That's called uprooting the shoots. Just like someone who goes into an actual orchard and uproots the anetios harakos, the tender shoots, right, the baby trees, titzamachna od, to the point where they won't grow anymore. The hifsid haparis, and he ruins the orchard. Kach hifsid hachachma b'kafar be'ikar ha'elokus. So too is one who ruins the chachma and denies the fundamental principle of divinity. V'zeho nikra rasha b'Haggadah. That's called the rasha in Haggadah. There are those who enter into this investigation, and because of its depth, they cannot complete it. And they remain in their simplicity until they die. So that's what it means that he looked and he died. So that's interesting. I picture him looking and dying as like Medusa, right? Or like he looks at it and he just like dies, But it means he looked and nothing happened, and he just like lived out the rest of his life. Okay, meaning his inquiry only took him so far, and he just didn't progress after that. So that's an interesting read on that, And I think he uses the word tamimus here clearly because it's a Haggadah reference. I don't think he would describe who did this one? Ben Azai as I always forget which one's which. He wouldn't describe him as what was it?
Yeah, Ben Azai.
Yeah, he wouldn't describe Ben Azai as a Tom in the classical sense. And then there are those whose minds become confused or messed up because of the depth in this investigation. And his confused mind leads him to doubts. That is what it meant when it says he looked and went crazy. Is it where we are?
Oh yeah.
Like someone who wants to go into the orchard and looks at it from afar. So he's not looking and learning, it's going crazy. And he found harms and obstacles on the way. And he could not enter into it. And he didn't get anything from the chachma. That doesn't really correspond to the mashal he gave, or for the nimshal. I mean,
What was the
what sound like you're saying is he gets doubts in the investigation,
right?
Mishinis Babla Data Bachakira, Mibne Omka. The investigation confuses his mind because of its depth. Ubalos Fegos Bibilbo Data, and he arrives at doubts from that. So it sounds like he has doubts, and then those doubts lead to further doubts. But then he says that it's comparable to a person who sees the Pardes from afar and can't get there because of the obstacles in the way, and he doesn't get anything from that Chachma.
Wait, how is that different than the Kofar?
So it sounds like the Kofar is actually arriving at and embracing false views. This is questions and doubts that impede your progress.
I see.
Yeah. So again, whether or not that's what the Haggadah is saying, I think that's like a nice shot about what happened to these four guys, these four Tanaim,
Yeah.
Different, and I'm sure, we could go more into depth into that, but like, these are, and if you think about the Rambam and more Nevuchim that we read about like why you shouldn't start off in this, then you can see how these four things can happen. Like clearly, kfira is a thing. Like you can come to deny fundamental ideas about God, especially if you're relying on your imagination. That's like when he said in the Chagiga, kol shel chasal kavod kono, if you don't have pity on your intellect. But then you can also, he uses the Rambam uses the much of like going to a place and falling into the pit, and like you would have been better off if you never left home. That's like the hitzitz nifga. That's like the last category, and then the hitzitz umes is you just don't get anywhere. Like you can't make headway in it.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so back to the Rambam in Daled Yu Gimel. So, like they said, four went into Pardes. The Alpha P Shegadola Yisrael Hayu, even though they were the greatest members of Israel, the Chachamim Gedolim Hayu, and they were great Chachamim, Lo Kulam Haya Bohen Koach Leda Ulahasik Kol Hadran Al Burian. Not all of them had the capacity to know and grasp all of the matters clearly. So it's like a warning that even those who are qualified, by their resume at least, are not going to make it, necessarily.
Because of personality, or
He doesn't say why, right? Could be it could be psychological factors. It could be like that's just the limits of your mind. Like some people just can't, understand. There's a limit to what they can have, and if they push themselves beyond the limit, then they're going to cause harm. Yeah. Okay, last halacha. Vani omer she'in roy lehitayil b'pardes elamish nismale kreso lechem ubasar. I say that one should only enter into the garden, into the orchard, after filling his belly with bread and meat. V'lechem ubasar, and the bread and the meat, zeh hu leda be'ur ha'asar v'mutar v'kiyotz b'shar mitzvos. This is to know the explanation of the prohibited and permitted and other things like that, meaning the chayav and pater and all the other stuff, tabi and tahor, from the other mitzvos. So meaning that's the Mishneh Torah, right? With the Mishneh Torah, and it is the learning style of Talmud, of like going into the explanation of it in depth.
It's interesting that all this came first in the Mishneh Torah.
Yeah, right. It's true.
So wait, so this is his own mashal?
I believe so. I don't think this is quoting from somewhere. Footnote doesn't say. Or it doesn't say a source.
Wait, no, it makes sense that he would put it in the beginning because he's warning you, saying like before you go do anything else, finish this whole book, and then go do something else.
It's just funny that he said all the things. Like he
But
said.
they didn't go into them.
Yeah, I mean, but the answer to that though is easy. Is that he had to explain them because they're the most important mitzvahs.
Right, it's the foundation.
Yeah, right. If he was writing a textbook on curriculum, this would come at the end.
Right.
But the mitzvahs are not like that. Yeah. The alpha p should Davar elu Davar Katon karu osan chachamim. Even though the chachamim call these things a small matter, shehari amru chachamim Davar Gadol masa merkava v'Davar Katon havaya dabai v'rava. As the sages said, a large matter is the work of the chariot, and a small matter is the argument of Abai and Rava, or the analyses of Abai and Rava.
Interesting, it doesn't mention Masim Bereshis.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Alpha Pichain, nevertheless, Ru'in Hein Lakdimin. Nevertheless, it is proper to precede them to them, meaning to start off with the Davar Katon and then do Davar Gadol. Shehin miyashvin dato shel adam tchila, because they settle the mind of man first. This is one of the things we have to work on. The ode, and furthermore, shehin hatova hagdola shehishpia hakadosh baruch hu liyishuv ha'olam hazeh k'dei linchol chaya ha'olam haba. Furthermore, they are the great good that God bestowed, or that Hakadosh Baruch Hu bestowed, to settle this world in order to inherit life in the world to come. The efshar sheyedayim hakol, and it is possible for everyone to know them. Gadol v'katon, one who's great and one who's small, ish v'isha, man or woman. That is refuting the idea that someone asked me about of thinking that the Rambam might hold that women have an inferior das. So he clearly doesn't hold that they intrinsically have an inferior das, because he says that they can know this just like men can. Whether he holds that they have circumstantially an inferior das, that's a separate topic. But here he's clearly saying that isha, balev rachav ubalev katar, someone who has an abstract mind, someone who has a narrow mind. So the question that we have here is, what does he mean? First of all, like what is the purpose of this mashal here? He could have just explained the whole thing with Davar Gadol and Davar Katon and then said you have to go, what is the idea of the mashal? And then the two reasons he says that you have to start off with Davar Katon is Yishuv Hada'as and Yishuv Olam Hazeh Kedei Linchol Chai Olam Haba. So what are those things?
Well, the second one is not saying that it's preparation for masturbation. It's just saying, like the first one is saying, like, this is going to help you in your studies in
right.
And like
that's true.
As opposed to the second one is just saying this is the
so it depends on how you read the V'od.
Okay.
So you could read it V'od. Furthermore, here's another point about Davar Katon, or V'od ru'uyin hein l'hagdiman shehein hatova hagdola sheishbi hakadosh baruch hu. I mean, there are two reasons that it is proper to precede it.
Right. Yeah. So it seems unrelated.
Yeah.
It's strange.
I think it's a question.
Yeah. For sure.
Let's just look at the footnote to see what they say. I mean, I have some ideas, but I've not read the footnote yet. So Yud Gimel 2. So Lahitile is Latile, fine, to stroll. Davar Katon is Pachos B'mala, it's inferior in level. Havayda by Rava Hamasan V'matan Shel Gedolei Hafhamim B'Talmud by Barava. Oh, that's a proof, by the way, that Davar Katon, even though he calls it Beir HaAsur V'Mutter, it's not just the Mishneh Torah, which is Torah Shel, it's also Talmud, because that's what Abai and Rava were doing. Shehem Yashvin Datu Shel Adam Tchila. Tam Rishon, the first reason, Hamitzos Messiahs L'Adam L'Tchum Es Gevulos Haderach Shehu Chai Ba Ulchavin Es Ufav Es Kohos Gufo Kidei Shetiye Datu Muchana L'Hakaras Hashem Yitziva. So the mitzvos assist a person to limit his path, or to define his path that he lives on, and to orient his ways and the faculties of his body in order that his mind is disposed to recognize God in a direct manner. B'muvan zeh, in this understanding, asiyas mitzvos kodemes l'chol isuk b'rayonos. The doing of mitzvos precedes all involvement in philosophy, or whatever you want to say rayonos are. V'od sheina tova hagdola. Tom Shaney, second reason, so they're learning the way I was. Ha'adam tzarich la'atziv es chayav ba'asiyas mitzvos. Ba'olam hazeh. Person needs to la'atziv, I don't know what that is, his life in doing the mitzvos by resembling Hashem in olam hazeh, mitoch hatuvnus shel Pardes. I hate the fact that they use modern Hebrew words. See, Kafech has a way of using modern Hebrew words that he doesn't do it when there's an available rabbinic Hebrew word, and that's why I enjoy reading his Hebrew. This is just, I don't know what these are. Shel Pardes B'Hasagas Hashem U'Vahan Hagaso B'Muvan Zeh She'Sis Mitzvos Mamameshes Rayonos Nisgavim U'Mufshad. Okay, this is different than the way I understand it. Do you have any ideas for what the two yeshuvas are?
Right. Well, one, I mean, definitely there is a, yeah, I mean, it might not be how the footnotes understanding it.
Yeah, I forget about footnotes. Yeah.
It could be, the first one is the like study of Talmud and how it like is a good trainer for your mind. And,
yeah.
Like, is, there's like Masma Kavan, Masma Bereshus are very, there's no Vidarim really.
Yeah.
It's just sort of free thinking.
Yeah.
So this is like, has limits and has like a structure that that it fits in.
Okay.
And then you're able to think, it trains you to think better.
Yeah.
But then the second one is that you like keep like then if you understand you have to understand the system of mitzvos so that you can practice it better, so that you can,
Yeah.
it perfects your mitzvos and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and then you can, then you can go into these areas.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Either this is exactly the same or just or virtually the same. Is that Yishuv Hadas is that by learning about the mitzvos, or sorry, by doing the Torah and Talmud, you are training your mind, which gives you the intellectual virtues that you need in order to embark on this difficult abstract area, and then the understanding the mitzvos unlocks your ability to be perfected by the mitzvos and to practice them properly, which has the effect on the rest of your perfection, on your mitos, on society, on all the other stuff, which further, like, there's only so far you can get in terms of training your mind. You also need to perfect your mitos and to have a proper society to be able to make sure that your mind is on the right track. So you're cultivating your internal world and you're cultivating your external world. In order to position yourself in a way where you can engage in Master Makam, Master Brachis without harm,
It's interesting that you talk about the society that makes a good society. Like,
yeah.
Is that like?
Oh, I just had an insight.
Yeah.
No, go on.
No, please. Yeah,
I just might have answered a question on why the Rambam, when we did the Sefer Mitzvos on ahavas Hashem, in the Sefer Mitzvos, he says that it's through studying mitzvos and through Maaseh Brachis.
Right.
So maybe, and the question was, number one, why doesn't he say that in the Mishneh Torah in his definition of ahavas Hashem? But number two, where does it show up?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is where it shows up. Meaning, the study of halacha is part of the mitzvah of ahavas Hashem insofar as it's a necessary prerequisite to get there.
But how's that different than what he was saying there, which is you get ahavas Hashem through studying mitzvos?
So that I can't answer. I mean, you could say that you get ahavas Hashem through studying mitzvos, but in terms of its place in the mitzvah, no, it's like this. There's two things. There's the experience of ahavas Hashem, and then there's the mitzvah of ahavas Hashem. So the experience of ahavas Hashem, maybe you can get through mitzvos. Maybe that's how to understand it. But in terms of what place does the study of Talmud Torah have? Does the study of mitzvos have in ahavas Hashem? Like in terms of the structure of the mitzvah, it's the Davar Katon, which lets you to get to the Davar Gadol where the real ahavas Hashem takes place. The other possibility is to say that ahavas Hashem is only through Davar Gadol, and then that's a real question on the Sefer Mitzvos about why he includes it there. Why he includes the study of the mitzvos in his definition of ahavas Hashem in Sefer Mitzvos.
Whereas your first understanding, it was that it was like the more primary ahavas Hashem is in Maaseh Brachis as opposed to.
My first understanding, let me say them again, just make sure I get clear on my own. One possibility is that only Davar Gadol gives you ahavas Hashem.
Mm-hmm.
And so why does he mention studying the mitzvos in the Sefer Mitzvos? For this reason in the Mishneh Torah, because you need to study the mitzvos in order to be able to get to the point where you can engage in Davar Gadol. The other possibility is that both study the mitzvos and both Davar Katon and Davar Gadol can give you ahavas Hashem, but the higher level of ahavas Hashem is through Davar Gadol.
And the Davar Katon has to precede the.
Yeah.
And also, he does make the point here that everyone can
relate
to Davar
That's
Gadol.
true also. So that would lend that, although it's interesting because that halacha at the end of what was it, the second parak or the third parak, where he darshans the pasuk in Tehillim, that I mentioned that like seeing a sunset is also like a form of ava,
Right.
or was it yira?
Usha.
Yeah, I'll say. It was Shevach.
Okay.
But I mean, it's in the prakim about Av and Yira. So
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Right. So what is that? So if it seems like from this, everyone can get Davar Katon. So that means not everyone get Davar Gadol.
Yeah, definitely not everyone can get Davar Gadol.
So does that mean that you can't just say that Av and Yira have to come from Davar Gadol?
Yeah, I guess if that's gonna be the knockout question of like ahavas Hashem has to be available to everyone, then you'd have to say you could get ahavas Hashem through Talmud Torah.
Right.
and again, like to me, it makes sense that you get ahavas Hashem from Talmud Torah because it is appreciating like chachma for its own sake.
Yeah.
It's lishma. It's ma'aseh yadav from Hashem. We saw from the Radak in Yeshayahu, right?
Yeah.
Ma'aseh yadav could either mean astronomy or Torah, you know. So that does make more sense to me.
Also, the drasha Chazal, that's of whatever.
The
They say
Atzal
something
Makir. Wait,
from
no.
Shema, I think, from like that, like.
Oh yeah, Vahiyu Advar Me'ela. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's
Right.
Talmud Torah.
That's true. That was what the Rambam brought down in the Sefer Mitzvos. Yeah, yeah. So that makes more sense to me. So I guess what the question that this really answers is, if you're going to be bothered in the Mishneh Torah, why doesn't the Rambam mention the ahavas Hashem via studying Torah? He does, but he mentions it here.
Mhm.
It is still weird that he doesn't say that learning Torah can give you ahavas Hashem directly. It's a little weird.
That is weird.
Yeah, but he said it in the Sefer Mitzvos. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, he is saying it here. He's saying Davar Katon is the analog of Davar Gadol for most people, for everyone.
Yeah.
That everyone can reach.
Right, but he never says that you get ahavas Hashem through studying mitzvos.
Right, not explicit.
Yeah.
Didn't he say that in Sefer Mitzvos?
No, I'm saying in the Mishneh Torah he doesn't say
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And anything we get from the meat in the bread thing is the one thing that's weird about it is like everything he said so far here, and especially in the morning book, is you really can't do Davar Gadol until you've done Davar Katon.
Yeah.
You can walk in the garden all you want if you don't eat your bread and meat. You can do it. It's just not the Seder, you know, like
Are you
the
saying like literally walk in the garden?
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's in the mashal,
Right.
right?
But
Pardes.
Obviously, he doesn't mean it literally.
Well, yeah.
No.
He's saying it's
In
not,
the mashal,
He's saying it's
the
not
mashal is don't walk in the garden until you've eaten your bread and meat.
Okay.
The nimshal is you can't be involved in Maaser Merkava until you've done Talmud Torah. Well, that's a bad mashal then, because
Oh, okay.
yeah, right. Now, meaning the mashal he used in the morning Nevuchim made sense. For example, mashal used in the morning Nevuchim is you can't feed a baby bread and meat. That was the exact mashal he used. That is a good mashal because it'll kill him.
Yeah.
You know?
It's backwards.
Yeah,
It seems
yeah.
like- right. It seems like it's like walking in the garden. That's like a compliment to eating.
Yes, it's like
you know, like you eat and then the
Take a
meal,
walk.
the dessert
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
whatever.
right.
You go for a walk to help the meal. Not,
Yeah.
Not that the meal helps the walking.
Yeah, right.
Weird.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about this. Yeah.
Well, okay, so definitely back to what we were saying before, though. It definitely does seem like the ahavas Hashem of Talmud Torah is like not derivative. I don't know. It's not derivative, but it's like the reflection or like the shadow of ahavas Hashem from Masber.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
In the sense that it is
That it's like
lower level, like
it's a. I don't
well,
know.
here, let's say what's the same and what's different. What's
Yeah.
the same is you're appreciating chachmas Hashem, you know, through seeking abstract knowledge.
Right.
What's different is that in Torah you're studying a legal system for man's perfection, and in Maseh Bereshis you're studying God's creations, the world, and in Maseh Merkava you're studying the things that are beyond the world, like you're studying actual brios.
Right.
You know.
Like the way God creates.
So there's
Right.
3 levels.
Technically, there's 3 levels. Yeah, it is. Back to Zev's question before. Davar Gadol, he says Maseh Merkava. Doesn't say Maseh
Right.
Bereshis. So where does Maseh Bereshis fit in? It's a good question. You know.
I don't know.
But I guess also because you can't. Oh, actually, no, maybe that's not true. You can't have Meister Merkava without Meister Bereshis.
So here's the thing:
it's just like
is
a
you would
given, have
you
to
would
know it.
think that, but then there's
Not
that
about
Gemara that the
Meister,
Rambam the Rambam quoted in one of the chapters in the More Nevuchim. Oh no, he didn't quote this. There's a Gemara somewhere where one of the time. Let's do role playing here. Okay, so like you asked me, can you teach me Maaseh Merkava?
Yeah, and
And I
you
say,
say no, I don't. You can't teach me. No.
That's
Can I
right.
teach you, Master Merkava? And you say, no, I can't. You can't teach me because you can't say. You can only say it to one person.
no, this is a different story I'm thinking of.
Oh.
There's a story where like they set up a trade
Okay.
and like I gave you Maaseh
one person gives
Bereshis,
Meister Merkava to Meister
Oh.
Bereshis.
and
Right.
you were supposed to give me Maaseh Merkava, but you
Uh-huh.
withheld it from me. No, so that must be the other way around. Something that indicated that the guy learned Maaseh Merkava before he learned Maaseh Bereshis. Yeah, right. Which it's funny because nothing that the Rambam said here indicates that can't happen. All he said is that Maaseh Bereshis is like a bucket and Maaseh Merkava is like an ocean. So theoretically, like you could have someone who knows, let's say like someone who's a metaphysician, but just hasn't studied physics yet.
That's interesting.
I mean, unless you can say metaphysics, it requires physics,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Huh. That's just wasn't that just a historical quirk? It's called metaphysics.
I don't know, because if the malachim are the laws of nature,
Right. Then it's studying
that which is the chachma, the system that generates the laws of nature, or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, it's run into that wrong. This, speaking of like limits to our knowledge, there's good reason to believe that we will die not knowing the difference between, or not knowing like what exactly is included in Maaseh Merkava and Maaseh Bereshis. It's just like, it's just like who in our generation or in the generations that we're fortunate to live through is gonna be able to penetrate that. Like,
it's so weird. Like there is, as we're learning this, there's this feeling that like in the future, like I'm gonna know it. Like we're gonna know it soon. Like very soon it's coming.
I don't have that feeling.
I know.
Yeah.
But then I realize like obviously I'm not gonna know it.
Right, yeah.
It's like,
but it's comforting to know that someone knows it.
Yeah.
And the fact that like no one knows it right now, and even the people who knew it, did they know it? Or if they did, they can't explain it because they had, we can't get all knowledge. I mean, look, it's like we said in the Kedusha thing, like the angels saying Kadosh, 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 they're involved in some level of knowledge that we just have no part of. This will be another one. Yeah, Busha. All right, this is a good 4 prakim, and Leonetta, after the break, we'll tackle our first like traditional halachic area in chapter 5.
Nice.
Yep. All righty.
Cool.
Sounds good.